This film is closing FrightFest. We're in the beating heart of premier territory for films. How does it feel to be showing you at such a historic venue for start?
You know, it's an honour and it's also terrifying. I hope it lives up to the hype. I'm thrilled. Seriously, I think what I love about FrightFest is it's a filmmaking family, and also just the everyone's focus on the purity of like cinematic psychological horror, which is what the film is doing, and I think and it's the perfect kind of audience to be experiencing it. So I'm thrilled, I'm honoured to be closing out FrightFest, and I think there's a huge part of me that cannot wait just to sit down and enjoy the film with the audience, because it's the best audience to be watching it with. Really.
Now, two women stuck up a tower 2,000 feet in the air. Yeah. Where does an idea like that begin?
Where it really goes from is the core of the idea, right? Like the horror of heights, the idea of the terror that we all feel innately, and looking at the best way to tell that story. And so we were very much aware that there was lots of different notes you can play with that kind of concept. And but we really wanted to have a human story at the heart of it. So it all kind of developed from the right reasons, but at the core, we were always very focused, like make a cinematic experience that really drives you through this the most. And with the characters of Becky and Hunter, we kind of felt we found a nice balance of two different sides to a central character problem, which is the death of someone, and the idea that living life to its maximum. The characters represent each side of that. Really. So you've got Hunter, who really after following the tragedy kind of runs away, and then you've got Becky, who kind of shrinks back, and the idea of how they're both kind of like at the center of all of what they do. The tower kind of represents the idea of living life and climbing out of the kind of grief that they're in. So there was a lot of kind of components like that. Like the soup of it all felt the right way to go. So yeah.
Now, letting the FrightFest audience have a little look behind the wizard, behind the curtain.
Yeah.
To make this film, you constructed a 100-foot tower of itself, which is quite impressive. So, whose big idea was that?
It was needs must, as they say. And I think we had we looked at different ways to film it, and ultimately, I think when you're getting into the truth of it, you want to connect to a movie in a real grounded way, and my own kind of view on horror is that the more times like a studio has tried to make a horror, it's often failed, because you have like a gloss that's over the front that really like it puts a kind of lens in front of the audience's connection with your characters. And so I think the best horror films tend to work when they're raw and they're real and they're shot in a real situation, because you kind of pick up on nuances that aren't just about what's in front of you, but about how the crew act, how the camera is, how the sound is. They all play psychologically. And so the idea, we quickly kind of realized that to do this right, to do it justice, we do it for real. And we do it for real. And that means going to a height and finding a way to shoot this at 2,000 feet. And so that became the big challenge at the center of our production, is like how to do that. And in the end, we toured America. We went around various different places in California. Myself and James Harris, the producer, who's scared of stairs. He's so scared of heights, it's hilarious. So he and I would drive up these strange, out in the back, rural places where there's like a little mountain trail or whatever. And we eventually came across this place called Shadow Mountain in the middle of the desert, out about an hour from Victorville in California. And this location, as soon as we saw it, like, wow, like it was great. It had a great, well, you'll see it in the movie, but essentially a great landscape, a big drop off, and then the challenge kind of becomes, how do you build towers at the top of the mountain, which is a whole engineering thing, and it involves just a lot of people sweating it out, like slamming hammers, digging spades, doing all the things you need to do to actually build something at the top of a mountain. So there's a very practical engineering behind the scenes aspect. But because the movie's all set there, once that's done, it's done, and you can then. So once that was settled, once we went through the heartache of doing that, we were then able to kind of hang there and just shoot the movie as the movie in a very old school, real way. So
it almost becomes like a chamber piece in a way, but you're 100 feet in the air.
It totally is, yeah. And I think it is, and there's something very kind of intimate about that, and it really. And what I enjoyed was it forces you into into a certain type of storytelling when there's less characters. When it's all stripped away and you kind of bare and you have nothing to kind of really cut to, because we really wanted to trap the girls there at the tower and not let the audience escape. So it means you've got nothing to cut away to, so what you cut to, and it naturally evolves into kind of the storytelling of what you see. So it was very organic, I guess, in that sense.
So how do you cast two women that are brave enough, and not just brave enough, but confident enough to be the characters?
Crazy enough. Right?
Oh, crazy enough, baby.
Yeah, genuine grace. Two things. One was, it's the first film I've had where the producers, like James, Christian, and David, basically said, look, if we do this for real, if we keep this film contained, if we do it this way, cast who's best for the part. Don't just cast for the wrong reasons, which is often the case, actually. But cast who's best for the part. So the audition process, even though it was via Zoom, it was a very honest audition process. And I just tried to kind of get out the actors, try and read them, whether they were really scared or not, because I think a lot of people might say, I'm fine with heights, I'm fine with swimming, I'm fine with riding horses, blah, blah. But what I did was I showed them the engineering designs of the mountain, the cliff, and the big 100-foot tower, and you could see in their eyeballs, like, I might not want to do this, even though, so I got like an honest read, and with Ginny and Grace, they never said like, this isn't going to be, I'm not going to be scared shitless, but they were honest. They said, look, this looks terrifying, also looks amazing, I think I can rise to the challenge, I'm pretty confident I'll make it, and that's what convinced me enough. And then in the end, when we all went up there for the first time, it was like we all did it together. We all climbed up the tower for the first time together, and it was emotional because it was like there was a release at the top, actually, just of relief that we'd all made it. More them than me, although it was really me secretly. But no, it was a big relief, and it was a big, So it was a very. We went on our own little journey behind the scenes for sure.
And between them up there, there's a very much an emotional arc, as well as a kind of will they get off this arc that happens, and and without giving too much away.
Yeah.
If I say to you, the bloody truck.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
How much punishment did you want to put these women through?
I think the fun of this sometimes is giving it hope and snatching it away again, right? And it's a ride, so you want to go like over the top, down and up, and I think that is what is fun about a cinematic experience. And I think that there's a whole you want to get the most fun out of that. You want to, fun might be the wrong word, because you go on a journey, you go on a stressful journey that in the end, hopefully, takes you on the same journey Becky and Hunter go on, which is one where you have to face your fears, you climb out, you go further, and you kind of, there's a cathartic element of healing at the end. So hopefully it takes the audience on that journey too.
Now, I believe as part to enable you to understand how good the shots were in terms of the cinematography.
Yeah.
Your cinematographer, McGregor, yeah. He introduced you to the VR headset, and you're able to sort of be IMAX ready up a mountain.
Yeah, 100%. Like when you think about how stripped back the shoot was, we were like we had pop-up chairs, dust wasps, horror. It was like a horror behind the scenes to be in these conditions, which was awful. But yeah, McGregor is genius, and he brought, rather than having a little director's monitor, because we were shooting in 4 IMAX, he basically set up a virtual IMAX cinema on the Oculus. And he was like, put these on, and he framed the shot, and I would put the goggles on, and I would see the IMAX shot in the cinema, and it changes. Like when you're sat in the cinema watching a shot, very different way that you read it and judge it, and the grammar becomes different. Very often, go wider, and that really filtered into making the film. And then in the end, when we came back to the edit, did the same thing. So every edit, we would watch it in an IMAX cinema to really make sure it was the most poignant kind of experience we could master. So and that's why it's going to be nice tonight, right? Because you've got on like IMAX screen and see it in the way that we shot it and the way it was meant to be seen. So I think it's going to be very exciting for sure. Yeah. Couldn't hear any of that.
I can hear you perfectly. You're okay. So when you've got the shot, well, I was just going to say, actually, thinking about that, it's a bit like the bands who put the record on in the car to see if it sounds okay, is what you were doing there, really.
It is like that, though, isn't it? Because you kind of like, I think you want to be as close. Very often with filmmaking, you have these separate siloed processes, and I think the more that you can close that gap, the more you can say, okay, this is how it's going to be when I'm sat in the cinema. This is literally how it is. the better. And the closer you get to that, the more accurate you can kind of weave the filmmaking. You know, it sounds pretentious, but I think that's better, because it's better not to find out later that it's different, right? And and I think it was key to making the film look the way it did. McGregor did an incredible job.
Now, usually at this point, I like to ask what was the most challenging day on set. But I've had a request in from a mutual friend of ours, producer Keith Bell, who you know from the tournament.
I do, of course. Yeah. So what's Keith? Keith, yeah.
Was there anything like the Bulgarian missile crisis on this shoot? He assures me you'll know what I mean.
I know exactly what Keith means. I want to say we had our equivalent, but it was the top of a mountain. Yeah. No. Keith, I think every film is hard for different reasons, and you have these moments of particular struggle that we all kind of get into. Now, this one, tournament and its Bulgarian missile crisis, was its own special moment that I think we had. The struggle of making tournament and bringing that to life was at the heart of that one. But this one was more. It was more practical. It was more. It was more about nature beating us down. Actually, that we had so many. We jokingly call them biblical events, where we had like hurricanes, like lightning storms. We had like hot rain one time, melted the sets. We had like a swarm of flying like fire ants. It was very strange things that went on, and so every day felt like this new battle, and it became a joke amongst the crew and I, where it'd be like, "Whoa, what's happening today?" And it was like, but what we learned was to kind of lean into it rather than try and fight it. Like, there's no point fighting nature. There's no point doing that. So I think when we leaned into it and let it play as part of the movie, and rather than trying to like fix rather than waiting for the continuity to be right, just like film during the storm and make that part of that scene. And it's like, and it was very much incorporated into the movie. And again, I think it helps play the realism of the movie by the fact we did that. So I'm really glad we did that in the end, and I think it pays off in the film. Hopefully.
And finally, then, what for somebody going into this to watch the premiere tonight?
Yeah.
What are you particularly looking forward to see with them?
Well, tonight. Well, two things. Okay. So actually three things. I'm very excited about this audience. I think their love and appreciation of the film and this particular genre and these kind of thrills. I think that gets me very excited, right? Like I hope it satisfies this audience. I really hope it does. Fingers crossed it will. I think there's an element as well where I want people to hopefully go on this kind of thrill ride that stresses them out but rewards them at the end. And also there's an element, to be honest, there's a personal element tonight as well, which is the film was about, part of this inspiration of the film, like the heart inspiration of the film, was actually someone in my family, brother-in-law who died, and Becky's journey is actually reflective of that, and his widow and her kids are here tonight to watch the film, and it's kind of for him, for Andy. So there's something very heartfelt about letting them share the film and be here tonight, and I think he was a guy who had the central message of the film of like living life every day and doing that kind of thing. That is nice, and it'll be nice to see with the family in a kind of special moment. So tonight is kind of very special for that as a one night only thing. But I hope that message, like honestly, my hope for the film is not only that it kind of thrills audiences and we have a similar experience, but actually the takeaway in an ideal world is that we take away that message, that live life. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for being my final interview on the media wall for FrightFest TV.
Yeah, mate, you're fucking relieved. It's like, thank God, I've done a million of these, right? Well done, excellent, good stuff. Well, thank you for making it so comfortable and wonderful. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Scott.
That's